Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Horizon English Stories. Take a slow breath, find a quiet place, and let this story carry you into the past. Today, we are meeting a young woman who once sat in fear behind stone walls, yet later changed the fate of a nation. Imagine a girl who is only 20 years old. She sits alone in a freezing room inside the Tower of London. The walls are thick and wet. A dark river moves outside her iron window. Armed guards stand at her locked door. Her own sister, the Queen of England, put her there. She has no army, no money, and no powerful friends. She does not know if she will live or die the next day. Yet inside her is something no prison can lock away. One day, this frightened prisoner will become one of the most powerful sovereigns in the world. Her name is Elizabeth, and her story begins not with a shining crown, but with pain, danger, and loss. To understand her rise, we must first look at the world she entered. In the 1500s, men ruled public life. Kings made laws, led armies, and decided the future of entire countries. Most people believed power belonged naturally to men. Women, even royal women, were expected to be quiet, obedient, and useful. A princess was supposed to marry well and give birth to sons. Few people believed a woman could rule alone. That is why Elizabeth's life felt so impossible, and why her success later seemed almost miraculous. Elizabeth was born in 1533. Her father was King Henry VIII, one of the strongest and most feared kings in English history. Her mother was Anne Boleyn, Henry's second wife. Henry wanted a son more than anything else. He wanted a boy who could inherit the throne and continue his dynasty. When Elizabeth was born, she was healthy, beautiful, and royal, but she was not the son her father wanted. The court tried to celebrate, yet disappointment hung in the air. From her first day, her life stood under the shadow of someone else's broken expectation. That shadow quickly became a storm. When Elizabeth was only 2 years old, Henry turned against Anne Boleyn. He had her arrested and taken to the Tower of London. She was accused of terrible crimes against the crown. Today, most historians believe those accusations were false, but Henry's will was stronger than truth. Anne Boleyn was tried, condemned, and executed. On a cold morning, a sword ended her life. Elizabeth was too young to understand what had happened. She would grow up without any real memory of her mother's face, voice, or embrace. Loss entered her life before she could even name it. After Anne's death, Henry declared Elizabeth illegitimate. In simple words, he said she was no longer a lawful princess. She was pushed out of the line of succession. In a single moment, she fell from high honor into uncertainty. She was still the king's daughter by blood, but no longer safe by law. Elizabeth did not grow up in total poverty, yet she grew up far from security. She lived in quiet country houses, away from the dangerous games of court. Her father married again and again. Some wives vanished. One more, Catherine Howard, was also executed. Young Elizabeth learned a brutal lesson early. In a royal family, marriage could be a road to death. Her last stepmother, Catherine Parr, was different. She was kind, educated, and deeply interested in learning. She saw Elizabeth's quick mind and made sure she received an excellent education. That gift helped shape the queen the world would later remember. Elizabeth studied with unusual discipline. As a teenager, she could speak or write in Latin, Greek, French, Italian, and Spanish. She loved history, books, music, and thoughtful conversation. But she learned something even more valuable than grammar or vocabulary. She learned to stay calm, to stay silent, and to watch danger carefully before it moved. England itself was full of danger. After Henry VIII died, the country was divided by religion. Catholics and Protestants feared one another. Leaders punished people for the wrong beliefs. Faith was not just private. It was political, explosive, and sometimes deadly. In 1553, Elizabeth's older sister Mary became queen. Mary was a devout Catholic, and she ruled with fear. She ordered nearly 300 Protestants to be burned at the stake. Smoke and terror spread across England. People later gave her the dark name that still remains in history, Bloody Mary. Elizabeth was Protestant, so every day became a test of survival. One wrong letter, one careless word, or one dishonest friend could lead to prison or execution. She learned to hide her true thoughts behind courtesy and restraint. But Mary still did not trust her younger sister. She believed Elizabeth might support Protestant rebels and steal the throne. In 1554, Mary decided to strike first. Soldiers came for Elizabeth in the night. They took her by boat, through the cold rain to the Tower of London, the same prison where her mother had died. For many people, those gates were the last gates they ever passed through alive. Elizabeth knew exactly what that place meant. She knew the story of Anne Boleyn. She knew that a charge of treason could end in a public execution. Imagine her fear as she approached Traitor's Gate, saw the wet stone steps, and understood that she might never walk out again. When the boat reached the stairs, she refused to move at first. Rain fell hard around her. Then she sat on the wet stone steps and cried, "Here lands as true a subject as ever landed at these stairs." It was a brave sentence from a young woman who had almost nothing left except truth and dignity. Elizabeth remained in the tower for 2 long months. She waited, listened, and wondered if death would come at sunrise. But Mary could not prove treason. At last, Elizabeth was moved to a country house and kept under house arrest for many months. She was still a prisoner, only now inside a quieter cage. Then history turned in a single season. In November 1558, Mary died without children. By the law of succession, the crown passed to the last remaining heir, Elizabeth. The woman once treated as dangerous, doubtful, and almost disposable was suddenly Queen of England. She was 25 years old. Tradition says she was at Hatfield House when the news arrived. Messengers rode to her, knelt before her, and announced her new destiny. Elizabeth looked upward and spoke in Latin, "This is the Lord's doing, and it is marvelous in our eyes." The prisoner had become the sovereign. On January 15th, 1559, she rode into London for her coronation. Crowds filled the streets, cheering and throwing flowers. Elizabeth smiled, waved, and met people's eyes. She did not want to seem distant or hidden. She wanted England to feel that its queen belonged to the people as well as to the throne. Yet the crown she received was heavy. England was poor, the army was weak, and religion still divided the nation. Powerful rulers across Europe doubted that a young woman could govern successfully. Many expected confusion, failure, or civil war. Elizabeth answered doubt with patience. She avoided reckless wars. She chose talented advisors, especially William Cecil, who served her with loyalty and intelligence for decades. She listened widely, but she kept final judgment in her own hands. That balance became one of her greatest political strengths. Still, one question haunted her court again and again: marriage. Parliament wanted an heir. Foreign rulers wanted alliances. Advisors feared that if she died childless, England might return to chaos. To many people, a queen without a husband looked incomplete, unstable, even unnatural. Princes and noblemen came from France, Spain, Austria, and elsewhere. Elizabeth welcomed them, danced with them, and wrote elegant letters. She knew how to give hope without giving an answer. Many men tried to win her hand, but none could truly win her freedom. There was, however, one man she loved deeply: Robert Dudley. He was handsome, intelligent, and close to her from youth. They shared trust and long affection. But Dudley was already married, and when his wife died in mysterious circumstances, public suspicion grew immediately. If Elizabeth had married him, scandal might have destroyed her authority. So she made one of the hardest choices of her life. She chose her crown over her heart. She had seen what marriage had done to the women around her. Her mother had married and lost her life. Her sister had married and weakened her own position. Elizabeth refused to let any husband rule through her. She told Parliament, "I have already joined myself in marriage to a husband, and that husband is the Kingdom of England." People began to call her the Virgin Queen. Elizabeth turned that image into policy. As long as foreign powers believed marriage to her was still possible, they hesitated. Her unmarried state became not a flaw, but a diplomatic shield. The greatest test of her reign came in 1588. King Philip II of Spain was furious with her. Elizabeth was Protestant. She supported the Dutch against Spanish power. English sailors also attacked Spanish treasure ships. Philip decided to invade England and crush her rule. He sent the Spanish Armada, a huge fleet of 130 warships, carrying about 30,000 soldiers and sailors. Across Europe, the Armada looked invincible. England was smaller, poorer, and more vulnerable. Fear spread quickly as the giant ships moved toward the English coast. But Elizabeth did not hide. At Tilbury, where English troops waited for invasion, she appeared before them in a shining steel breastplate over a white dress. She rode among her soldiers on horseback and spoke words that history never forgot. She said she had the body of a weak and feeble woman, but the heart and stomach of a king, and of a king of England, too. Her courage lifted the nation. That night, the English sent burning fire ships into the anchored Spanish fleet. Orange flames tore across the dark water. The Spanish captains panicked, cut their anchors, and scattered. Soon the smaller English ships attacked, and then storms in the North Sea shattered what remained. The invincible fleet was broken. England rejoiced. The victory did not solve every problem, but it changed the country's spirit. Under Elizabeth, England entered a new age of confidence, trade, exploration, and art. The theater flourished. A playwright named William Shakespeare began to write works that would live for centuries. The English language itself seemed to grow in force and beauty. Elizabeth ruled for 45 years, an extraordinary length of time for that age. Yet power did not protect her from loneliness. In her later years, close friends died one by one. Robert Dudley was gone. William Cecil was gone. The court still glittered, but the rooms around her became quieter. She never married. She had no child to inherit her crown. The great queen, who had once held a nation together, had to face old age almost alone. In March 1603, near the end of her life, she finally accepted the next successor. With her death, the Tudor line ended. But the England she left behind was stronger, more stable, and far more respected than the England she had inherited. So this is the heart of Elizabeth's story. A girl called illegitimate, a prisoner who expected death, a woman doubted by almost everyone, and yet a ruler who built a golden age. Her greatness did not come from comfort. It came from discipline, restraint, courage, and painful choices. That is why her story still speaks to us today. When you sit down to study, practice, and improve yourself, you are also making a choice. You are giving time to something larger than today's comfort. Growth is not always loud. Very often, it happens in quiet rooms, through repeated effort, while nobody is watching. Sometimes learning feels like standing inside a cold stone tower. Progress seems slow. Doubt grows heavy. Other people may think you are not ready yet. In those moments, remember Elizabeth. The world told her she was not enough, but she refused to let fear define her future. Every page you read, every word you learn, and every difficult step you continue to take is proof of your strength. Elizabeth chose duty over ease. You are choosing your own horizon, one steady day at a time. Keep listening, keep learning, and keep going. If her story moved you, leave a comment below and tell me, would you choose a quiet life or a dream bigger than yourself?